Today I'm joined by Maureen Ross Gemme of Emerge Leadership Academy. Maureen, thank you so much for being here today. How are you doing?
I'm doing really well, Karen. It's wonderful to be here.
It's my pleasure to have you. Maureen, I thought we could start a little bit with your story. Can you share a little bit of your background and how you got into the coaching space?
Sure. My background is mostly in corporate. I spent like 30 years in a corporate entity where I had like 12 different jobs in those like 27 years. And so it was a lot of moving and changing and growing every other year, because if I wasn't growing, I wasn't really happy. So I had a lot of different kinds of jobs there, but what I loved the most was being in education and helping people to really figure out who they were. And I got an opportunity to do some large scale meeting planning specifically for leaders in IT and HR, and I loved it. I thrived in that whole environment. But I left there about 15 years ago, and well, actually, so not quite 13 years ago in 2013, and I struck out on my own because it was time. I just kind of hit the glass ceiling. I couldn't go any further, and I knew I had more potential. And when you know you have more potential and you're just sort of squashed down in the same kind of jobs in corporate, it's not fun. It becomes a grind and it's a difficult thing to do. So I developed Emerge Leadership Academy because I wanted to train more. I had been training trainers to train. I trained mentors on how to, be sales mentors in different departments and things. And I also trained subject matter experts on public speaking, and I just love training. So I did get into that. I have been doing that for 13 years now, loving it. And then when COVID hit, I got into coaching. And coaching, I honestly have been coaching for probably more like 35 to 40 years, because before all the corporate stuff, I will tell you that I was a teenage drug addict and alcoholic. And that past, it was difficult. It's not easy being a teenager on a good day, right? So but when I grew up in the 70s there, it was sex, drugs, and rock and roll. And we didn't know any other way. That was just kind of the way the culture was. But it was really, really hard for me. So I hurt myself basically, right? Not like physically, but emotionally, mentally, psychologically. And I found myself in places I never wanted to be. I barely graduated high school. I was a full-blown alcoholic by the time I was 15, pretty much. But I did graduate, but I spent like the first week of every school year in like sophomore, junior, and senior year in detentions, just making up for all the detentions that I had missed from the year previous, from all the school that I skipped, and it was not good. I knew that if I was going to go to college, that I would never have made it because I just would have drank myself to death. So, but I always had a strong work ethic, and I decided though that I'm from Connecticut, and I decided that Connecticut was the big problem. So I I moved down to Texas. They call that a geographical cure, and I lived in San Antonio for 2 years, and then I moved to Austin. This was after I graduated, and first I got jobs in bars, and the drinking age was 18 back then. And anyways, the long story short, I finally hit my bottom at 24 years old, and I found 12-step programs, and I got clean and sober. But I started on this path of sobriety and personal growth and development. And that is why I say I've been coaching for 40 years, because once you do your own work in that first 5 years, then you start helping others. You can, you start sponsoring other people and helping other people. And so that's why I have been that way all my life, and that I have all these tools in my back pocket. And I don't want you to do the math or anything, but it's been over 40 years now that I've been clean and sober. And that's why I absolutely love helping people to step into the next best version of who they really are.
What an amazing journey. And kudos for you for finding your way through that, the difficult early days. I can't imagine it must have been so difficult.
Well, Karen, everybody has a story, right? Everybody has been through difficult times. We've all been through something that gives our life substance. So I don't claim to be really any different, but I will tell you this, I will never go back there. Like life is so much better on this side, believe me.
It sounds like every step brought you a little closer to where you're meant to be. So, if we fast forward to today, what does life look like for you in this season of your business?
Okay, so now what I'm doing is, well, in the past, since 2015, so for in 10 years, I've trained over 3,500 people across the Northeast, and from over about 200 companies. I counted them. I'm in the 190s now, almost 200 companies. And and that's from all different areas, like um, corporate, retail, finance, healthcare, government, manufacturing, all the things. And the basic message here is that people are people are people. And leaders, good leaders, can take their skills from manufacturing into corporate, from corporate into nonprofit, from nonprofit into government. Like it doesn't really matter. Your leadership skills are based on who you are, what your values are, what your beliefs are, and how you carry yourself, um, how you give back, right? And I would say, I believe that everybody is a leader in some way, shape, or form, whether they want to be or not. It's just that some people get paid money, big money, for being a leader. And then others, other times that there's reluctant leaders too, like single moms who have to toe the line, and, you know, people who have to step up in crisis and things like that. And all those doctors and nurses throughout COVID. I mean, there's been some really hard times, right? Um, but anyways, the what my business looks like now is I do coaching. I had been doing a lot of training up to COVID, and then suddenly everything was pulled away. I've done a lot of presentation and public speaking. I've written a book, and I really like to help people to overcome like their fears, phobias, addictions, and again, reach their goals, like get rid of the blocks, because we hold ourselves back from so much, um, but to be a good leader, like, personal growth is the way, and you have to really understand yourself. So I got into understanding people's personality. Like I just dove into Myers-Briggs type indicator back in my 30s and 40s, and then in my 50s I got really interested in um, the Enneagram. I don't know if you're familiar with that. And then I became certified in 2018 in Everything Disc, because it's the easiest one to bring into the workplace. Everything Disc is a Wiley and Sons brand. They've been a publisher for over 100 years, but they have an educational arm. And because I'm a training company, I get to be an authorized partner. And so I do a lot of training with Everything Disc, and I help teams in business figure out what their personalities are, what gives them their quirks and what, where their gifts are. And then when everybody can understand each other a whole lot better, that now you can be a better leader by understanding where can I delegate better, easier? How do I motivate these different personality types? How can I inspire, right? Different personality types. And it's so much easier if you have a culture that everybody understands what their personality type is. We know personality is not everything because there's beliefs and values and experience and education. There's all the other things, but it's so fun for me to help people. I could talk about personality all day. I just love it.
That sounds like some fascinating work. Like you said, just working with the different personalities and getting, I guess, understanding and identifying the certain personality types, how they learn, how they communicate, how they work with each other, and I guess with that understanding, leaders are able to support their team members, and everyone in the team could support each other. Is that?
Indeed. Yes. Everyone gets along so much better. Plus, it makes work more fun. It's not meant to be an excuse like, well, I'm not good with spreadsheets, so don't ever give me one. Like, no, and the introverts, like the people who like don't make me go to that networking event that sometimes have to be on the party organizing planning committee. You know what I mean? but but when you really understand all of that, it's easier to get people engaged. And it's easier also to let people go back to their cubicle and not involve them in certain things that would just drain their energy. Because when we do things out of our comfort zone, it drains our energy. It takes a lot more energy when you know what your preferences are and you know who you really are, then you can make better choices about what to say no to. You can set better boundaries. You can also, step out of your comfort zone and know that this is just a short term and then I can step right back in. But there's a dance to it all. But when you have this conscious awareness of who you really are, then you can own your gifts in a way that people will want to follow you. They'll want to be with you, and that works no matter what your personality type is. It really does. Because sometimes people don't like certain things about themselves, but once they realize that this is who they are, like embrace it, and then you can leverage it. It's a whole different ballgame, and you can get rid of that inner critic in your head a little bit more and own who you are. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. As you talk about that, I'm reflecting on myself, like you talk about introverts, and there's a lot that resonates with me. And it's just so, I think it's eye-opening.
Well, can I ask you a couple of questions, Karen? Can we figure out what your personality type is?
Sure. Yeah.
For anybody who's listening, right? Kind of self-select. I'm going to ask you two questions. So the first one is, are you more than 50% of the time, fast-paced and outgoing, or more cautious and reflective?
More cautious and reflective, for sure.
So you knew that automatically about yourself. But sometimes they might be right on the line. They might not know exactly, well, I don't know, sometimes I'm this and sometimes I'm that. Yes, we all can step into that place, right? But we know that naturally we're usually one or the other. But some people might be right on the line. But they're usually not right on both lines because I'm going to ask you the second question now, right? So if you were right on the line for that one, then this next one will be really clear for you. Okay, so the second question is, when it comes to people, are you more questioning and skeptical or warm and friendly?
I hate to admit it, but questioning and skeptical.
So that really does tell me a whole lot more about you. So in the disc, I'm going to take 1 minute to explain the four different types. Okay, so in the disc model, think of it as a round sort of map, and in the top left quadrant is D, and then it goes across I, S, and C. So it goes around DISC, and the D stands for dominance. And we all know those types of leaders. They are drivers. They want to get stuff done. They go for quantity, or they want to make sure it's out the door. They don't need a lot of accolades. They don't need people. They just want to get it done. But sometimes they cut corners. They're very direct, firm, and they don't want people to waste their time because they're busy. We're busy people. But they're fast-paced and outgoing, and they're questioning and skeptical. So they're more task focused than people focused. So sometimes they step on people's toes. And we all know these types, right? So they're directors. They direct. And on a good day, they're friendly and they're directing. And then you have the eyes, and the eyes are more. The I stands for influence, and these are your fast-paced and outgoing, but they're more warm and friendly. They're people-focused. They they have enthusiasm. They're friendly. They're the partiers. They're the people that want to have a good time all the time. They're also really creative. They have lots of ideas, but it might also come across as too random, or they're loose cannons, or they're all over the place. They're not grounded. Just like every style has its, pluses, there's also a few minuses there, right? So then the next one going down is the S. Now your S's are more cautious and reflective, but they're warm and friendly. Your S's are super good listeners. They love people. They do love to collaborate, but they want stable harmony. They're not into the chaos of they like one-on-ones more, but they're resource people, and they don't like to say no. So they get taken advantage of a lot of times, but they're very kind, and people go to them all the time because they don't say no. They end up getting overworked and often underappreciated because they're not saying, hey, look at me. They're just understated. They're just getting it all done, like that duck on the pond that has the feet going underneath. You never see them, but they just look like they're gliding along. All right, so that's the steadiness. It's called steadiness. That's the type. And the last one, which I think is you, Karen, is the C type. And the C stands for conscientiousness. And the C's are cautious and reflective, but they're also questioning and skeptical. And that doesn't mean we have all of the types within us, for sure. And sometimes you might be like, maybe you're a CD, or maybe you're a CS. You might have a secondary style as well. But the C's they're very quality focused. They really love to get things right. They're good at systems and processes, and they like to, have all the ducks in a row, and they don't want cutting corners, and they double check things twice. And, some of their fears, though, are that they get it wrong. Sometimes they're accused of being aloof because they're not as emotional. They don't show that outwardly emotional stuff. Like the eyes are like, ah, and the C's are like, could you check your emotions at the door, before you even come in? And so the C's sometimes are very introverted, and depending on any one of the types, how evolved you are in understanding yourself, you can own your strengths, but be able to step out of your comfort zone sometimes to accommodate your boss, for example. So the S is when they go into their boss's office and their boss is a D, they're not going to be like, so how was your weekend? And like they would normally, did you, blah, 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 did you do this? Did you do that? And instead of doing that, which they would do to the I boss, right? But to the D boss, they're going to just get right to the point, Hope you had a good weekend. Hey, could you double check this for me? Or I can't make a decision on this or that. Would you, help me to figure this out? And that way, when you know what the style is of the people that you work with, you're going to be a lot more, um, you're going to develop a lot better relationships because you're going to know how to really treat them. It's easy for you to step into that role to really help somebody be more comfortable. So that's a little go around with the DIS and C. And so now, having known that, does that feel like the C is where you're at pretty much?
Yes, a lot of that resonated with me for sure. So I'm definitely a C. But I,
These are your technical folks. Yeah,
yes.
professors, and they got lots of expertise, and they want to make sure it's done right. And it's hurtful when it's not done right.
Yes, you're dead on, bang on. That's me in a nutshell for sure. So I want to take a minute and switch gears here a little bit. Clearly, you've built something really solid with your business. What's working really well for you in the business?
Well, I guess that's defined, what do you define as working well? To me, what works really well is when I see results from my clients, when I see that they are making the changes that they really wanted to make. To me, I don't care what happens, it's gone well. So, for example, I had a client recently who went through my 6 month program. I do have a program where it's a 8 weeks of different modules, and we have talks about each thing, and you got to do that deeper inner work to really understand who you are. It's not just deciding what personality type you are. It's there's a lot of stuff. And then when she did all that, her goal was to get another job, and she had been in this job for like 8 years, and it was taxing, and she's also a C, by the way, and it was hard because she had to be reacting to all kinds of data and information that was coming in all the time, when she would rather be, give me some, don't make me have to put out all these fires, like give me something that I can look at and analyze. So she wanted to go into an auditing type of a job instead. And so we ended our engagement, and she had had like 5 interviews when we ended in September, and she called me in early November and said she just accepted a new position with the state police, weirdly enough. And and it's so I'm so excited for her. She's going to be starting, I think, next week, and we have a call to catch up and find out what it's going to be about. But those are the kinds of things. And another client who is an executive for a nonprofit, and it's been very, very difficult. He first he had to step in as a COO, and then he took over the CEO role. And the outgoing CEO was supposed to have trained him, and it didn't really happen that way. She was already checked out. And so he needed somebody to help him get rid of that voice that said, he's not good enough, he doesn't know enough, the imposter syndrome thing. So we did all this work, and we just finished up, and he's going to continue his sessions in January. But it's been a full year now that we've been working together, and he is like a completely different person. He's running the board meetings now. He's got total control of everything. He's actually just hired another CEO to be a partner, and he's just going gangbusters. Busters. But it hasn't been easy. But he's been able to change a lot about his own self, so that he doesn't sabotage himself anymore.
It must be really amazing to see your clients succeed and do that transformation after having done the work with you and get the results that they're looking for. I can't imagine anything a better feeling.
Yeah, and I have so many of those. One of the most important things to do, for any of you that are new coaches out there, is to ask people at the end of their sessions or whatever, at some point, for feedback and testimonials. because the testimonials I have, like, I've got like 50 of them that are the good ones, and I'm telling you, it's so rewarding. It's like when we were in corporate back in the day, we used to save all the anytime somebody wrote a nice memo to our boss about us, we would save it in a file. You remember those days? Anyways, that's how it was for me growing up in corporate. But now I say, get those testimonials and read them and reach out to those people, even though you might not be working with them anymore. I still send out a newsletter every week, and I get people responding, especially people that have worked directly with me, to say whatever they have to say, and give me updates, especially around this time of year because it's the holidays, and it just feels so good to see, like, oh, I've done this, I have all these accomplishments now, because when you can remove those blocks of things that are really holding you back, there's just life can just really be amazing. And we don't realize how much we're holding ourselves back until we start talking about and diving deep into all this stuff.
Yeah, like you said, I think doing the work and clearing the blocks and not really realizing necessarily what's there, but when you come to that understanding and you move past some of the blocks, the sky's the limit, right? There's
Yeah, indeed. That's absolutely true. But it's not if you don't believe it. It's not if you think that you're still busy blaming other people. Like, blame, get rid of it. Take responsibility. It's all good.
we all learn most when things don't go according to plan. Was there a time where something didn't work the way you expected, and what did you learn from that?
Yeah. I have tried, Karen, so many different strategies, and here's what I've learned. Oh my gosh, I don't even know if I can sum it up, but I will tell you that I've spent over, you know, like $80,000 on coaches and training programs and different things. Um, this 6 month program taught me how to do email marketing, and this one taught me how to, set up my website, and this other one taught me how to really deal with social media and do that strategy, and another one said, hey, write a book. So I did. I wrote a book, and it was great because I actually got lots and lots of speaking um, opportunities to go out and talk about that book. It's called Emerge: 7 Steps to Transformation, no matter what life throws at you. And that came out in the beginning of 2019. And then COVID hit a year later. But I haven't been as good of a marketer as I'd really would like to be. So get good people to work for you to do some of that work yourself. Like, I'm great at coaching, I'm great at training, I'm great at speaking. I'm not great at social media. I'm a good writer though. I have, the email thing I send out every week, but I'm not great at building the list. You know, I forget to take pictures, and I forget to, those kinds of things. So get the help that you need to help you do the things that you're not great at. So that's been my biggest lesson. I did have my own podcast I did 100 episodes in 2021 and 2022. I also took courses and spent some of that money on becoming a digital course creator, and I've created a couple of courses. That's the stuff, right, that I use in my executive coaching programs now. I just say, okay, here's your homework. Watch these 5 videos and do this work, and we'll talk about it next week. Unless you want to talk about something else, you don't have to talk about it, but at least then we're on the same page, the same way of thinking about certain things as we go along. Um, and then so I've done a lot of that sort of thing, but I think the biggest thing is it's so important to just be authentic. Don't try to take anybody else's program and make it your own. Like, just be you, however that is. So even though I've spent all that money trying to figure out I've spoken on, honestly, hundreds of podcasts at this point in the past like 7 years, and and running my own too. And I'll tell you that none of them have really gotten me a lot of business. Most of my business has been through word of mouth and people, recommending me, or I train a class and then one or two of those people say, "Oh man, could you be my coach?" Or could we have a conversation about this because I'm struggling with something. At one point, I tried to work with just people in recovery, and and then I created this whole program called Recovery at Work, because it's how do you bring that recovery like into your job, but also how do you recover in your job, recover just your own self into whatever leadership role you're going in. And I found that um, still 10% of my people were in recovery, and the other 90% were just people, right? Who needed help with stuff. They don't have a program of recovery to go to get that help. So I've become that, and it's just been a wonderful, wonderful journey.
It sounds amazing. You've clearly come a long way. What's lighting you up next?
Oh, what's lighting me up right now is I'm actually halfway through a certification program to become a hypnotherapist. So I believe that, what stops us and what blocks us oftentimes are these ways of thinking. And if you can just get into a relaxed meditative state and then have Maureen help you understand, reset your neural pathways, or that's what the hypnotist does really. They don't make you into anyone that you're not. It's only, you're only going to change if you want to change. But it's so fun. And I've already seen amazing results in the 8 weeks that I've been in the program because I practice with people all over the world. And it's been amazing, some of the things that I'm learning. So that's what really lights me up right now. By the end of January, I'll be a certified hypnotherapist.
Wow, that is incredible. Just one more tool in the tool belt.
Exactly.
Where do you hope all this leads? What's the big picture you're leading towards or building towards?
Well, I'm sort of at the end of my career, Karen. I'm in my mid 60s now, and I feel like because I love this work so much, I could go on for another 5 or 10 years, no problem, and maybe well past that in helping people figure out who they really are and what they want to do, what their purpose is in the world, and how to get past their own saboteur so that they can make a bigger impact. And for every leader that can make an impact where they're at, the ripple effects go out exponentially. And so I don't have any, great big designs to change the world, but I am going to be available for many years to come to help people step into the next best version of who they can become on this planet, because life is so short. Look at how fast it's going by already, for me anyways. And I have 4 awesome grandchildren, so I'm going to spend time playing with them. I have a husband who's 13 years older than me, so we want to do some traveling and that sort of thing, as well as a mom. She's 90 and she's getting her hip replaced in a couple of months. So we're thinking she's going to live a lot longer. And those things all just warm my heart. Like my life is full. I work out every day. I meditate every day. Every day. If you don't meditate, people, start. So helpful. And so I'm doing what I love to do. And I feel like I'm at the pinnacle of my career. And I'm absolutely having a wild ride. It's really fantastic.
I think what you have going on is just amazing, and I think if we all had that, we'd be a happier place.
Right. Could we all just be happy in the world? Like, wouldn't that be amazing? Yeah.
Yeah, that is. Maureen, thank you so much for sharing your story today. Where can our listeners connect with you?
Well, I'm actually redoing my website right now, but it should be out, I'm hoping, by the end of December. And you can find me at emergeleadershipacademy.com.
Perfect, perfect. And Maureen, thank you again so much for joining the Leadership Lab today.
Thank you very much. And if you do go to my website, there is a quiz. It's, I think it's 9 questions on what animal best represents your leadership style. And it's sort of a mini disc assessment. And if you take that, you'll get on my newsletter list, which you can unsubscribe from anytime, but at least you'll find out what animal best represents your leadership style, and that's either D, I, S, or C. But I'm not going to tell you the animals because I want you to go check it out for yourself.
I will definitely check that out. Thank you again for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, Karen.
Thank you for spending your time with me today on the Leadership Lab podcast. My hope is that this conversation sparked a new perspective or reinforced something you already knew. Until next time, keep leading with curiosity and intention.